Daniel Williams, Senior Editor of Industry Insights at MGMA. Welcome to today's webinar, AI-Driven Workflow Automation, Leveraging New Technologies to Boost Revenue Cycle, Productivity, and Performance. Thanks so much for joining us. We'd also like to thank MedEvolve for their sponsorship. MedEvolve empowers healthcare organizations to work smarter with data-driven solutions that provide unmatched transparency, automation, and accountability. You can learn more at medevolve.com. We have a few reminders before we begin. After you take the required exam, you can claim ACMPE, ACHE, and CEU credit. Slides can be found under the webinar title, in your Enrolled Courses tab, or in the download box at the bottom of the screen. We love interaction in these webinars, so you can submit your questions, resources, and comments using the chat area on the right side of your screen. And now on to the session. In today's webinar, our presenters are Matt Seefeld, Executive Vice President of MedEvolve, and Maryanne Thompson, Controller at Academic Urology. They're here to discuss how artificial intelligence is transforming the way physician groups manage their revenue cycles. Matt, I know you've got a lot of great information to share, so I'm going to turn this over to you now.
Thanks, Daniel. I appreciate it, and I appreciate everyone for joining the webinar. Both Mary and I are excited to share some of the things that we've done and some of the results that we're getting as we look at automating many components of revenue cycle. Couple housekeeping items when we look at the learning objectives. We're going to talk a lot about some of the bottlenecks that we've experienced which led to poor performance. We're going to look at some of the ways that we've had to manage in the past, and we're going to look at how workflow automation, tech, and analytics have really helped us streamline our operations and obviously at the end of the day drive financial performance. Just quick introductions. I do run all of our revenue cycle services at MedEvolve. I'm over our data science, analytics teams, and business development and marketing. Been in healthcare my whole career, from the vendor to the technology development side to many years as a revenue cycle consultant. I always joke, is it better to be a consultant or a vendor? I'd say it depends on who's in the room with you. And then we've got Maryanne Thompson. Appreciate her joining us to share some of the insights and some of the outcomes that they have been able to get with the technology that we've developed. So Maryanne is the controller, head of finance and all revenue cycle operations at Mid-Atlantic up in Pennsylvania. Large urology practice up there.
Thank you, Matt.
In terms of topics, introduction to AI-driven workflow. We're going to talk about a success story case study with Mid-Atlantic. I'll give an overview of workflow automation analytics, and then I'll talk about where we're headed, where the industry's headed, and where we're headed as an industry leader. In terms of getting started, one of the things that helps us is to understand the demographics of the organizations that are on these webinars, these presentations. So if you wouldn't mind, I'd love to see how many folks we have that are private practice, health system, AMCs, other, and obviously I guess we have a no vote feature as well. So I appreciate you doing it, just taking a look. So a lot of independent physician groups are on here, good amount of health systems, got some RCM companies, see some consultants, a little shout out to the consultants here. Perfect, all right, so good sample size. What I can tell you from my experience is when you're working in these larger complex organizations all the way down to smaller independent groups, revenue cycle issues don't change, they just magnify. So whether you're constantly dealing with people, process, or technology, that's where areas for improvement seem to surface quickest. So it's good to know that. Let's talk about some of the challenges. We read Becker's every day. We try to keep up with payer trends. We have concerns about what's going to happen in 2020 and beyond. There's a whole movement now around consumerism, making sure patients don't get surprise billing. At the same time, making sure that providers are paid what's due from the patients. It's been amazing to see over the last 20 years how much of the provider reimbursement is now coming from the consumer. And if you don't collect that money prior to or at the point of service, your chances of collecting that back end drop dramatically, which is what we've seen with bad debt write-offs on the rise and balance sheet issues. So, a lot around the consumers and patient debt side. I think margin is a topic I constantly hear when I'm out meeting with our clients, talking with some of my cohorts in the industry is, it's getting harder and harder to collect from the insurance. Insurance is paying me less. My contracts are getting harder to help me. And then obviously I've got the patient debt problem. So when you start looking at margin, that's a huge driver of where we have to use AI and technology to do things that people had to do in the past. Staff turnover and retention, I've been at Revenue Cycle for 20 years. I don't know a whole lot about other verticals, but I've always been amazed at how much turnover, absenteeism, FMLA, all the things that go on in a revenue cycle. And that also makes it just harder and harder to be efficient, again, where technology comes in. And obviously limited resources. We never feel like we have enough people until you have the right technology, and then resources start to become less of an issue. And then underpayments, and then benchmarking. We'll talk a little bit about benchmarking and how comparative analytics. AI. So it's funny, in the early 2000s, the key word was, big data. Then it was predictive analytics. I always joke because those topics would start, and then everyone at HIMSS would have it on their billboard, or MGMA would have it on their billboard. And now it's AI, right? Everything we read is AI, whether it's Alexa. It's, for somebody, I think my Alexa the other day recommended I had to order more of something because my shopping cart was empty for too long. I mean, so AI it's a funny term. It's a term. It's also a misunderstood term, especially as it relates to revenue cycle. So we're going to explore AI principles, not in detail, but how it would apply to automating your revenue cycle. In the grassroots statement, it's really starting to look at machine learning, looking at data, looking at big data, structuring data in a way that helps tell us, whether our people are doing the right financial outcome with the actions they take. It's also ways to start carving out things that people don't need to be looking at along the revenue cycle. There's no reason to waste time and energy, resources, and cost if there's nothing you can do about a claim or if that patient's already financially cleared for service. Some of the challenges that we're up against, again, as a part of our business as a revenue cycle company, and so I'll talk a little bit about our situation and why we had to build these out for us and the outcomes we got. But one of the biggest challenges in my experience is just having a complete accounting of the AR. Am I sure that every claim that's been produced from a provider doing a service is actually accounted for, assigned to somebody, and being worked effectively? It's also which claims should I work? I can't just work everything. I need to work the ones that require intervention. The ones that don't, I need to let that ride, right, until they do require intervention. Staff productivity is a big topic for me. Every time I go on site, even now in 2020, people say, yeah, we track productivity. So-and-so worked 40 claims a day, or so-and-so financially cleared 50 claims, scheduled visits a day. That's old school. If you're just tracking productivity, you're already behind the ball. You've got to start looking at financial outcome from the actions that are being taken, and that takes some algorithms to do. You have to be able to say that if somebody's doing a job, they're getting the right financial outcome with the right time for the organization. You also have to use that information to make sure your staff is aligned based on competency. You can have incapable people but are willing to do a good job, but they're only incapable because they're in the wrong job, and so you have to be able to look at their skills, their outcomes, and maybe readjust them or repurpose them in other areas of the revenue cycle. If you're still manually creating anything, stop. Manual creation, spreadsheets. I was just recently meeting with some large organizations that are still living on spreadsheets, and that's not the way. That was fine in the 90s. It worked well in my first few years of consulting. I never want to do a pivot table again in my life, but at the end of the day, you've got to get to automation. Work has to be delivered to the end user right in front of them, and it's got to be the work that you want them to do. And then obviously poor visibility. I can't tell you how many times I still have folks, controllers, CFOs, accounting at the end of the month say, oh, here's my 47 reports, and then I print them out, and then I lay them out on my table. I spend 3 days looking at them. I try to figure out if there's things going on. You don't have that much time anymore. Healthcare is moving too fast. You have about 5 minutes a month to assess your revenue cycle and know whether the things that you've put in place are working. And if they're not, you need to know quickly why they're not working and what you need to do about them. Okay? You don't have the luxury of of wasting 2, 3, 4, 5 days to understand the health, the financial health of the revenue cycle. These were questions before we really built out our AI workflow automation for our revenue cycle team. These are questions that I asked, and the answers I got was that we're not good ones. We didn't know any of these things. And in today's world, if you're reading these and you don't know these, that's a problem. You need to know these, and it can't be daily, weekly. It's got to be real time. You've got to have real-time access to this information. So you, as a leader, have peace of mind that the revenue cycle is moving the way it's supposed to be. So it started at home. So I inherited our revenue cycle department back in April of 18. We were in pretty dire straits. Our margin was gone as a revenue cycle company. That was not a good place to be. We had to make some changes quickly. I was able to obviously identify some human capital changes that were fairly easy to make, but the bigger challenge was the manual processes that we had in the business office. And so we started our journey with building out a workflow automation, building out analytics, building out our scorecard, corporate scorecard views, and so that we could get a very good understanding on behalf of the clients that we bill for where there's opportunities to improve and making sure our people are working the right accounts and getting the right outcome for our clients. So this was really, the world that we lived in. We had no insight. We had poor work drivers. We had limited reporting, and our world has changed dramatically, and the results speak for themselves, and they continue to get better. I think the biggest thing that I saw was I was able to do a lot more for our clients with a lot less hours. My costs went down significantly. My margin was back to where it needed to be to fund R&D for the rest of the business. My overtime, I was meeting with a client recently who pays tons of overtime in the business office, and overtime is okay for special projects, if you got to get a big bolus of charges out, but at the end of the day, if you're running your business with significant overtime, that is very, very costly, and so we saw a huge reduction in that. So let's talk a little bit about actionable. I'm going to start, I like to start on the back end of the revenue cycle, even though we know it all starts at the front. But for us, and this is actually, Maryanne will talk a little bit more about this, is that this is actually mid-Atlantic data, and one of the challenges that she had was trying to make sure that she was staffed appropriately to manage the central business office operations for a large urology practice. The key here is that there's no reason you should be focusing on claims that are not actionable. What do I mean by actionable? It means there's something that your staff can do today to move that ball down the line. It may not score the touchdown, but move it towards the touchdown, right? And the problem in today's world with manual work drivers is there's really no way to easily carve those things out. And so when you start looking at system lists, is what we call things that you don't have to look at today, versus the active accounts, the claims that have to be looked at, you can see the dramatic carve-out. We see on average 80 to 85%, sometimes higher carve-out per system, which means the number of FTEs you need to manage your book of business drops considerably. And this is really a key focus on the AI side, is using AI principles to carve things out that don't need to be looked at. The other big thing for us in any organization is how are you assigning work, and is there appropriate levels of I call it load balancing, but do folks have enough to work, or do they have too much to work? You need to understand how well they're getting through work lists. You need to understand the average age of those work lists, and you need to start looking at timely filing statutes. You need to understand who's pushing claims out too far. You need to understand how many touches it takes to get a claim paid by Rep A compared to Rep B. And if somebody's much more efficient, then you need to understand what that other rep is doing to be more efficient and use it for training and hiring. So load balances is a big component of again, looking at AI principles to carve things out that don't need to be looked at, and for the things that do need to be looked at, prioritizing it based on maybe yield, age, combination of variables to make sure that you're protecting your AR. Some of the benefits we've already touched on, and we'll continue to touch on throughout the presentation. Obviously, real-time is imperative. Cloud-based helps because you can access information from anywhere. I joke that I can be on a Delta flight at 37,000 feet, and I can monitor my staff who are working our clients' AR, and that's important. Full visibility into the employee and departmental performance, understanding status of claims and AR. I ask clients a lot of times to say, hey, so how many claims are you working on average a day? Oh, we work about 1,000 a day across our business office. What's the status of that AR? And they look at me with blank stares. I said, well, you have to know the status. If you don't know the status of your AR, how do you know what is actually being hung up there? How do you report back to the front end of the revenue cycle? How do you answer all those fun questions you get from the providers about why is my gross collection rate going down? Why is my NCR going down? Why do I used to collect a lot more money than I do today, right? You have to have that information at your fingertips to save you time in the long run. You also have to be able to look at production data and efficiency data here to understand training gaps. If you're spending a lot of time doing manual quality reviews, you don't have the time to do that. You need to understand if you have the right team members in the right roles. And if not, you need to know how far a gap it is to train them up. And if it's too far a gap, you move them to somewhere else or you move them out, right? This is a business of healthcare anymore. Nobody likes giving away free care. Free care doesn't help keep the business moving, which doesn't help the community consume the resources that they need. And automation, right? You shouldn't have to think about where these work drivers are coming from. Your staff should come in the morning. They should hit start, and that's it. They don't need to think. They don't be working 8 different work drivers. They come in, they hit start, and they go. And then lastly is looking at tracking, right? We talked about performance tracking is just one small variable, the actions that are being taken, the statuses, the effectiveness, how far folks are pushing out, and then obviously the notes in detail to audit later on if needed. So another poll question, what have you done to automate your revenue cycle? It's workflow. I started my career with Stockamp and Associates way back in the day. I was one of the earlier folks there, and I remember Dale Stockamp always saying, workflow automation and measure to improve. Those are the 2 principles. And this was back, a long time ago. And he was right, and those are 2 characteristics that have really taken hold in my career over the last 20 years, is that to go in and try to redesign a business office or a patient access arena and not using workflow automation and not using good reporting analytic technology, you're just starting out behind the 8 ball, and it's not a good place to live. So I'm seeing some good results coming in here. Looks like we've implemented automated workflows, perfect. Denial work queues, absolutely. Leveraging that 835, the ANSI codes, making sure you're rerouting those to the departments that are making a mistake, at least from a reporting standpoint, so they stop making those mistakes. We've got dashboards, more dashboards. Outsourcing, yep, that's always an option too. If you want to control your costs and outsource it to somebody who can handle it. Make sure though, if you outsource, you have analytics that are real time that you can measure performance and hold that company accountable. Do not just outsource your revenue cycle and hope that things go well. Workflows, policies, lots of purchasing of AI. Good. So yeah, so lots. Thank you, by the way, for everyone who's responding. That kind of helps here. So that's very, very good. All right. So I'm going to transition here to Maryanne to talk a little bit about Mid-Atlantic and some of the things that they were up against, how we worked with them, and then the results that they have seen and continue to see. So with that, Maryanne, I will hand it off to you.
And hello again, everyone. And so I'm going to answer the first poll question. I, too, fall into that 50% that is part of private practice. A little bit about how our private practice came to be just 2 years ago. I'm sure, like many of you, the primary goal of private practice is to stay in private practice. And so we are constantly evolving in our own markets to stay relevant and to be able for the doctors to remain independent. And so about 4 years ago, 3 large private practices started talking to each other. And in 2018, we went live as Mid-Atlantic Urology. I came out of the academic urology division, and we continue to this day to operate in this divisional model, and we'll talk about why. So we went from individually being probably about 25, 28 providers with 10 extenders to the size that you see here on your screen. We're actually 78 providers now with 30 billing extenders in 46 disparate practices. Some even have one provider, and we're located throughout Philadelphia and all of the surrounding counties. So we have some strength in our footprint now, but ironically and not surprisingly, those strengths also became our challenges. So when we looked at how are we now going to manage this significantly larger group, we found that one of the biggest challenges we were going to have is really being able to see if our new size had the positive impact that the doctors were looking for. And doctors want to provide quality patient care and affect a good bottom line doing so. And so our challenges as administrators is to produce results, quantifiable results, that show that we're hitting those marks. Clearly, the biggest challenge we had was how do we know we've got all new contracts, we have all new fee schedules, we have new staff, we have people doing things very differently. How do we bring that together and give, number one, good results and measure those results also not just amongst ourselves but amongst our peers? So we started looking at just that classic SWOT analysis and said, what are our challenges? Well, it is challenging having 46 offices doing their own thing. Even though the managers were saying they're all doing the same thing, the reality was they weren't. Everybody had a different workflow and everybody had a different process. Of course, they're all looking to bring the patient in, to get them checked in, to collect the copay, to make a good patient experience, get the bill out the door, and get the bill collected. But how everybody was doing that and how everybody was accounting for that was as different as all of those offices. In some cases, in our smaller office, the doctor themselves was being their part-time administrator. We knew that our front desk was making mistakes because they all do, because they're human and it's busy. But we weren't able to quantify how can we impact and make changes at the front desk because we didn't know exactly what they were and we didn't know who they were. How do you train people when you don't know who needs training? Inherently, we know that a centralized location would make for the best efficiencies. But doctors that have been handling their own AR for 20 years need a little bit of convincing. And we just didn't have the capability to provide the type of analytics to show that this may be a better way. We had little or no reporting mechanisms in place, and even prior to going to a 78 provider environment, we really were not automated. We had tried, and I love seeing your answers, we were using buckets in our practice management system, but not everybody was functioning and could use our practice management system as well as others. So some offices were having greater success than others, but when you pulled it all together, it was dragging the whole organization behind. So it didn't take long for me to start complaining to Matt about all of my challenges that we were facing as this new merged group. And so Matt started sharing with me some of the things he shared with you. And so we too started looking at cloud-based applications that could provide these metrics, these key performance indicators that would allow us to start affecting some positive change when it came to working our AR. I was truly operating completely blind. I remember talking to Matt and saying, well, if I just move everybody out of the offices and bring them centrally, I'm going to have 16 people working the AR. Does that number sound right? And so I was making decisions based on what we've always done and my gut feel for how we wanted to do things. What I needed was real actionable data to make good practice decisions. I could then get their buy-in, and then I could start making these changes. The first major aha moment for me was when Matt turned around and said, no, 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 you don't need 16 employees. Based on what he had just shown you previously, you're really don't have 20 or 30,000 claims to work on any given day or week. You've got 4,000 claims. That was a game changer for us, and we really haven't ever looked back since. It took us maybe about 90 days to make the flip from our pivot table paper environment to move to a workflow environment. And we'll look at that a little bit, but what the change meant for us was that all of these folks, we got to repurpose people that really weren't AR caliber people. You know, in our practice, we have lean and mean because we're private practice. So we have staff members that were hired for one thing, but end up wearing a couple hats that just don't fit them as well as that one thing they were hired for. And it's been my experience that when you are hired to work AR, you come to the table with an entirely different set of skills than somebody that was hired to pay bills or somebody that was hired to check folks in at the front desk. And it gave us a great opportunity to really look at our employees and allow those that wanted to make this their career choice to apply for those 8 positions and then repurpose people in other areas, because I remember hearing people saying, I never wanted to have to work AR and call insurance companies. I'm so grateful I don't have to anymore. One of the ways that we were able to start measuring ourselves, and this is a good example, is this key metrics. Not only were we able to isolate and begin building a centralized accounts receivable department, and just like all of you, I outsourced things that we just weren't good at. I built other systems, but the one thing that I refused to give up and a way for me to really manage all of those vendors was to actually work the AR. If my billers aren't doing a good job, I see it in my AR. If my charges are not getting out, I see it in these key metrics. And these are delivered on a monthly basis, and we review them as an organization every month. And we've been able to use the benchmarking that's included to improve our own performance. You know, we all have places where we're ahead, we're either leading, we're following, or we're walking by each other on the journey. This gives me the opportunity to know where it is, and more importantly, share it with my staff. I've often said, without the ability to have data analytics, I could not possibly know, and I do, what Susie in my accounts receivable department did today and what she did with the claim, should I want to know that? One of the things that I find in my practice is a huge hit to productivity is giving each provider the opportunity on a monthly basis to see how they're doing. This provider report has also been a game changer for us, because I'm sure none of you struggle with getting physicians to get their billing in on time. I'm sure all of your physicians close their charts right away and move it over, and they document everything perfectly, and their billing has no problems when it goes out. But that's not my experience. My experience is, sure, just like all of you, they get distracted. I have some people that are great at documenting. Other people give half a document and then they're billing out the wazoo, and then you have others that get it in right away and they're moving so quickly, they're leaving things off, and the best way to affect change is to give them the opportunity to see how they're doing and how they're doing against their peers. We meet on a monthly basis with our providers, and I can assure you that this type of report is the first thing they ask me for when they arrive. It actually has changed their behavior. So I talked to you a little bit about outcomes. We're all about outcomes. As practice administrators, it is really the cornerstone of why we're put in the positions that we are. We struggle, quite honestly, to be able to know exactly what really is available here. You know, when you're working your AR with paper that is literally 6 inches deep, how can you ever use that type of methodology to provide solid results? And so the game changer in automation took the hundreds of thousands of CPT codes that we need for analyzing to know why we're getting denied, how we're getting paid. It has made a significant, and I mean significant, impact on our bottom line. Numbers don't lie. And I can tell you today, and it was interesting, I just closed my books for 2019. And it took us 6 months to go 100% live in this workflow automation. But we were able, at year end, to produce an 18% improvement on our gross revenue just by the changes that we've been making through using this workflow automation. And so what does that mean on a day-to-day basis? It's all the things that Matt talked about. My AR staff now walks in, turns their computer on, and they know the first claim that they need to work. They don't no longer have to think about what would be the best claim to work. I have a seasoned manager who's managing that dashboard. And every manager can see how their claims are being worked. So there's transparency. And even that one office doctor can look in himself and see how his claims are being paid. We can also see why our claims are being denied. And so when I said earlier, I know I have front desk issues, I have those answers now. Workflow can tell me, because I decide how the claims are denied and how they're recorded. So I say front desk denial, coordination of benefits. I can click on that and find out so-and-so in this office isn't checking in advance. And so we can train that staff member now. I can't say that 100% of my needles have been discovered in the haystack, but I have a methodology for finding each and every one. It's revolutionized the way that we work AR, and I can truly say we've simply just begun. As I said, we've been at this now for probably about 9 months. We went about it with the things that we knew, and every time that we review our denials and we see our clean claim rates, we're constantly adjusting. Most of us are experiencing 1 in every 3 claims now require documentation. We lost money because we just weren't getting to those claims. So now that we know that number, we now have somebody that does nothing but send those out to the payers. We've been able to carve out and have staff focusing on those trends in denials that the insurance companies like to keep us guessing on. We keep track of billing and coding, which is an outsource for us. We keep track of them separately so we can give that company feedback to their staff as they're doing our billing. It's amazing what good data does in your ability to keep the entire revenue cycle aware and accountable. And the interesting feedback I'll give you is our staff, those frontline staff, I am amazed at the ownership that they now show. They feel empowered. They want to know. They want to know how many claims they're working. They want to know, did I miss anybody? Did an insurance claim go out and I forgot to check the insurance? It's been empowering, not just in the end results, but it's helping staff morale. They feel seen in a way that I struggled with, hoping that they didn't feel like it was a big brother. And they don't. They feel empowered to own what's going on in their world, in their part of the revenue cycle. And as I said, we've really just begun. We've used the data that we've gotten to build committees. We have a front desk committee. We have a back office committee. We have an authorization and prior auth and eligibility committee. And we're using these data analytics to work with our PM to create new and better ways to affect and really manage the revenue cycle. Data truly does give us the ability to make good decisions based on facts and not feelings. As a numbers gal, feelings are just not my cup of tea when I'm trying to decide what's the next right move for our organization. We generate hundreds of thousands of lines of CPT. There would simply be no way that we could use that information effectively without data analytics. And then as an aside, we have data analytics on the other side of our house that is analyzing patient data to make sure that patients that meet certain criteria are seeing the right doctors for the right treatment, because healthcare is changing daily. We have new drugs, we have new therapies daily. We did that first, and now this has slid in behind it. And so in a world that seemed to be very manual, I was always struck with coming to healthcare. Everything about healthcare is about the next best thing to provide quality patient care. But I was so struck that everything on the administrative side lagged so far behind. My billers did not embrace technology, though my doctors do. This gave us the ability to function at that same high level. And so what technology has done for us in automating everything about the revenue cycle from claim generation to the denial is we've designed training specifically around our systems and actually use some CAN training for soft skills so that we can create a stronger, better workforce. We can see why our denials are happening, and they happen for a variety of reasons. We focus on the ones we can change, and we accept the ones we can't, and we adapt our staff to respond to what the insurance companies are doing, like I said, providing the ability to give them medical records quickly so that we don't lose that AR turn that we're very happy with. It helps us identify our stars and put them in the right positions. We've changed and adapted our workers as our workflow has changed. It has not only provided a better patient experience because my workforce feels more empowered, it has affected the bottom line. When I started, I said, those are the three things as administrators we're called upon to do. Now, we are not where we want to be. We are just on the journey, and we're in the process just like you are. But I'm happy to share with you what we've learned so far, and Matt will then talk to you a little bit about where we're heading. Truly, number one, that automation has improved our functionality in all the ways that you would think of and so many ways we never considered. Technology is feared in my world. People did not like going from a paper to a paperless society. But we did carry the day. But just because you're afraid of it is not a reason not to engage it. Using technology day to day, those dashboards, I use those dashboards. I never had something at my fingertips that allowed me at my level to be that involved in the day-to-day workflow of my revenue cycle. Having a vendor partner to work with is paramount. I could not do what I'm doing without a good vendor partner that listens to me and does what I need at Mid-Atlantic Urology to provide the outcomes that I need. If they can't be nimble and if they cannot address your needs and you have to wait for an upgrade in 6 months, that is not the type of vendor you need. It's important to know that AI is not going to replace your staff. It is an adjunctive technology. It is not a replacement technology. I could have 10 more people just to add all the time, because the more you learn, the more opportunity we have to improve those three things. we have more than paid for any investment that we've made with the outcomes that we have produced. The most valuable benefit of using technology is the improvement not only to staff knowledge, but to staff ownership and to staff morale. In a world that we live in where finding good staff is hard to find, making that investment in our existing staff through giving them the tools that they need to do their job well was one of the best investments we ever made. And because we've done that, we've got a lot of cross-training, and we have happier staff, which has led to a better patient experience and has improved our outcomes, as I said, 18%. And we're going for 30 next year. But as I said, we've just begun. Matt's going to talk to you a little bit about where this technology is leading us in 2020.
Thanks, Maryanne. Appreciate it. So a couple of things here, just to recommit what Maryanne's saying is that, when you have the right analytics stack, the right scorecard, you have ways to measure performance, you get away from emotional, subjective conversations. And that's something that's critical in revenue cycle, especially when you're talking with staff or you're talking with providers, is that you have to have consistent, accurate data. We all know the measure to improve. If you can't measure it, you can't manage it, you can't improve off of it. We also know that you have to have insight before you can derive action and outcome. So everything really comes back to saving you time. One other thing I'll just point out is time is of the essence. And if it's taking you, I said this at the beginning of the presentation, if it's taking you hours, let alone days to try to figure out the pulse of the revenue cycle, you have to make changes. You have to look at technologies that are already out there that can bring these answers to the surface. There's really no such thing in my mind about, when you start thinking about big data and data mining, that world is gone. It should be smart data, and you shouldn't have to mine down unless you see a problem. But if there's no problem, don't waste your time on it. Go back to the other 100 things that you've got to do, looking at go-to-market strategy, growing the business, dealing with emergency rooms, and whatever, dealing with physician credentialing, et cetera, insurance companies, negotiation, et cetera. You have no shortage of things on your plate. A couple of things as we kind of wrap up this area is one of the things I'll say, if you're using a workflow automation tool, that's awesome. If you're not, make sure you look for something that allows your staff to do their work in one pane of glass. When you start talking about what takes 2 clicks to do this, 3 clicks, 4 clicks, 5 clicks, 2 screens, 3 screens, I'm doing a lot of, Alt Shift, Delete, all of that type of stuff is not going to be okay. You've got to make sure that folks can easily do their job in one pane of glass. The other thing that I'll say is you have to have ways, flexibility in the way you set up your workflows, and more importantly, flexibility in how you track the things that are being done, right? Typing a memo is not reportable, right? Unless you have an NLP engine on top of it, which works great in coding, not so much in the revenue cycle. You have to have ways to track activity, status, and action codes. These can be structured. These can be customizable. These can be ways to track certain things. I know Maryanne had told me a story recently that with the new Medicare numbers coming out, she was told by her front desk, yeah, we're getting the new numbers, Well, she put a status code in for the back office to say denied numbers invalid. And guess what? I think Maryanne, what was it, the first month was over 90? You already had 90 denials for it, or they couldn't find the subscriber. So again, hold people accountable, make sure you do it in an automated, prioritized fashion. As we look at productivity, I talked about claim status. If somebody comes to you and says, well, how many claims were worked? How many claims were cleared financially? Don't just say 71 or 407. You need to be able to say, well, 407, look at the different status codes that we're seeing. Right? I ask folks, do you know the status of your AR? The answer is, not good. That doesn't work anymore. Right? You need to understand what the data is telling you. And a lot of this data is what your staff using workflow automation are putting into systems, and you have to have analytics that can grab that structured data and then start to analyze it and start to make it smarter and learning, okay? Measuring productivity, again, how are my staff doing? How do they compare to benchmark? How do they compare to the group? This is more important in my opinion. If you're not able to get at effectiveness, you need to find ways to do it. There's plenty of ways to do it. There's lots of good companies out there working in this space. But it's one thing to say, my staff worked X amount per day or week or month, but how effective are they actually collecting, or how effective are they clearing financially their schedule? When are they working? I can tell you right now, when we started looking at hour, day of week outcome in those areas, it was amazing to see how folks kind of drop off at the end of the day. Fridays, it seemed like everyone was off to the barbecue at 1. You know, again, when your staff understand that you have this level of clarity now into their outcomes, behaviors will change. Some will self-select and move on to, you know, take advantage of low unemployment rate, and they'll move on to other jobs. But the ones that embrace it are the ones that you want to keep. They're the ones that want to be competitive. They want to see that their hard work, 8.5 hours a day, is actually paying off for the organization. I will tell you, like in my experience, having data that shows the outcome at the staff level and then sharing the macro results that we see in revenue cycle with the staff is very empowering. You know, folks want to see that the business is doing well and that their hard work's paying off. They want to feel recognized. They want to understand that. At the end of the day, you know, effectiveness with collecting receivable, looking at things like that collection rate, all these things are important, right? You know, your doctors, your providers are delivering a service, whether you're in the acute setting, private practice, IDNs, it doesn't matter. You deliver a service to a consumer, and you need to get paid what you're owed for that consumer. How well are you being paid? And you need to know in seconds if you're not being paid appropriately, or if there's stuff hanging out on the AR, whether it's patient debt or insurance debt. What do you intend to do to improve that for next year? That P&L becomes extremely powerful in revenue cycle. You move that thing 1 or 2%, that's an accretive amount of cash flow for the organization, which will increase your margin, make folks happier, allow you to invest in more things for the community, recruiting, all kinds of downstream actions. So where do we go from here? You know, we talk a lot about back office. You know, you have to be doing the same principles on the front end of the revenue cycle. It doesn't do any good to have the best work drivers in the back office if you keep making mistakes up front. And so when you start looking at workflow automation, you need to see what are you doing to automate things like insurance verification, benefits, COB. How are you estimating liability? Are you collecting that estimate prior to service? Are you collecting historical balances? You'd be surprised how many of my clients do not collect from patients that already owe them money before they see them again. This is a business of healthcare. You have to stop that. You have to hold your patients more accountable. You also have to give them flexibility in payment arrangements. You know, I have a $4,000 deductible. If I have to go see a doctor in January, that's not a really fun check to write. What options are you giving me to help, you know, deal with these high deductible plans, right? Demographic verification, right? It's not just about an address anymore. You got to have the email, the mobile text, right? We're using all kinds of patient engagement tools. Many of you on this call right now are using really cool patient engagement tools, but if you don't have the right data, those are worthless. So you have to make sure these things are done. And then my favorite, pre-cert authorization. Is it required? If so, did you get it? How can you automate that process? So again, can you come in the morning as an administrator and on one pane of glass know that you're financially secure for the day and know which ones are at risk and what you want to do about it, okay? Very, very important when we look at financial clearance. And obviously, a pane of glass is key. We have bed boards in emergency rooms. You should have your own financial clearance version of a bed board. You should be able to see quickly who's cleared and who's not. As we kind of close here, you know, I think that, and I know there's lots of questions, so I want to save a few minutes. Yeah, I really, you know, big data, obviously that's been around forever. What you do with that data, how you structure it is really what you're doing. How you start to learn principles. You know, a lot of things we do in Metabolics, we look at machine learning. You know, every time these things happen, this outcome occurs. If it's a good outcome, let's keep doing it. Let's make recommendations to the staff that these things work. If these actions generate a negative outcome, stop doing it. Just as blunt as that, right? But you've got to be able to use data, as Maryanne said, to impact cultural change with your providers and to hold your folks more accountable so that they know that you're looking at these things. You know, I hate when I read these, every day I read these articles, and hospital A went out of business, critical access B went out of business. You know, more physicians feel like they have to be employed by hospitals because they can't maintain an independent practice anymore. when I hear these things, it breaks my heart a bit, because I know if you have an efficient revenue cycle, you'll have the choice to make what you'll have the ability, the financial ability to make the choices you want. And that's what, we here at Metabolics, we want to give back to our clients, is you make the choice. We're going to give you the tools necessary for you to make the choice. And that's what any vendor partner should be a mission be for you all. When I kind of think about, I guess in closing here, practice management systems, people kind of laugh when I say this, but to me, a practice management system is a data warehouse. I mean, that's what it is. You got lots of data that's flowing in there, and you lots of good data. If you're not using that data to drive workflow automation and analytics and transparency tools that get you fast insights quickly, you're missing the boat, okay? We're all in PNs, we all have EMRs, we all have 7 different vendors, in some cases 20 different vendors that run some micro component of your revenue cycle. If you don't have a warehouse, you need to start building data warehouses. You need to be able to access all that vendor data. You have to structure in a way that allows you to make informed decisions. So don't let data just get held hostage in a database and not do anything with it. This is really where the industry is going, and has gone in actually lots of other verticals. I think I'll close with no margin means no mission. The things that we had to do here at MedEvolve were to save the business. We had to save our revenue cycle services business, and we had to cut costs, and we had to do more with less people, and we had to do more actions that generate better financial outcomes for our clients, which in turn gave us, obviously better financial outcomes for our business. So that has to be top priority. I'm going to stop there. I know that there's some questions that are out there. If we don't get to everyone's, I'll apologize. We'll certainly follow up with you via email. Daniel, did you want to take back over?
Yeah, thanks so much, Matt. Yeah, let's get through as many of these as we can, and like Matt said, we will email you, get in touch with you to answer those other questions. So a first one out of the gate, how do you track or report insurance denials from large companies that mostly give only broad denial codes and not the real denial reason? Matt, do you want to handle that one?
Yeah, I mean, I think one is if you're not maximizing your 835s, you definitely need to make sure that you're set up for those 835s. Any good company should be able to parse those 835s, strip out that ANSI code, strip out the denied date, the denied amount, and then like in our situation, we actually have we've built over the years a roll-up that actually takes those ANSI codes and rolls them to categories, so you can start to see the trends. Are these COB eligibility issues? Are these coding issues? Are there auth issues? And then from there, be able to drill down to the actual denial reason. The other thing that's nice about workflow automation is because your folks are proactive in working these denials and not letting anything slip through, you'll also have their status codes to analyze as well. So you're not even reliant anymore on an 835 or what the payer tells you. You're relying on your folks who've already talked to the payer, ideally talk to the payer, and understand exactly why that claim's not paid.
Okay. Maryanne, I have a question for you. It says you originally estimated that it would take 8 people in billing. What did you end up needing with the structure process that you're describing?
Sure. So we actually estimated we would need 16 people to work just the AR. We scaled that back based on the data analytics to 8, and we're actually currently working with 4, and all of our claims are being touched in the amount of time that we need them worked.
Okay. Thanks for that. We've got time for a handful more here. Matt, I believe this one's for you. Does the solution provide a group of claims that need the same resolution, or do you manage one claim at a time?
Well, it's both. So part of the AI principles is if you start to see patterns and trends around denials for a specific insurance plan, maybe it's a specific insurance plan, a provider, location, right, multiple variables, then you can group those into a workflow, and you can assign that to somebody to get those resolved. That's really the idea behind leveraging data to drive the workflow, rather than just a work list created and you have to kind of start your own adventure there. So that's a great question, and something that needs to be a cornerstone of any AI workflow automation system you're looking at putting on top of your PM system.
Yeah, and
Okay.
we actually do that all the time. We just reassign everybody. If it's a large denial, that could be thousands of claims, then we just have everybody do it, and it's done in 10 minutes.
Okay. Here's another interesting one. How do you identify insurance companies that consistently lose claims, the ones that never come back as denied or paid?
My favorite. I never got your claim, right? Because that happens never. Yeah, so a couple things. Once again, when I was back talking about those structured data points you need to capture at the claim level, I call them status codes, is that if your folks are following up proactively and they get the claim not on file, that is your trigger right there. And then you start to use analytics to say, hey, every time I see claim not on file coming back from my reps that are working these claims, it happens to be this one payer. That's when you get in front of the room with the payer. You sit them down and say, here's your report card. You're a C. I need you to at least be the B plus in 4 weeks, and this is how you're going to do it. Stop telling me these things. Is it on your end? Is it on our end? Let's start to problem solve. So again, insight from your workflow solution drives action and behavior, and that's got to be key. But you can't garner those information if they're just writing things in unstructured narratives and visit memos. You have to have structured workflow.
Okay. We've got a question here. What specific solutions do you recommend for analysis of the data that a practice has and publishing it in a format that gives you actionable insight?
Yeah, great question. It's a great question. So what we've done, so we've shown you some very static screenshots here. A lot of our, we call them scorecards. Right? I like that term. It's a scorecard. Because it really gives you an idea of how well you're doing, and you can analyze it quickly. We've built ours out on top of Microsoft's Power BI. You do need to have drill down capabilities. So whether you go with a ClickTech or Tableau or Power BI, you've got to make sure you can grab it data and you can data mine it, slice and dice it. Those visualization tools have been around forever, and that is important. To do. So again, we put ours on top of a multi-tenant warehouse. We bring all of our data into one centralized location. So that's really where we've been doing ours.
And okay. I would add that as somebody that went from one platform to another, one of the things that was really important to us in looking for a data analytic provider was they were agnostic, because what my PM today may not be my PM next year. And I don't want to lose the ability to continue to get my data because my data analytics company can't communicate with my PM.
Okay. Maryanne, we've got a question directed to you. Do you provide an incentive for your staff if they meet certain thresholds or goals?
Well, Daniel, as a matter of fact, yes, I do, because I now have the ability to measure their performance and be able to give them incentives to do that, and I'm thrilled to be able to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, we did the same thing, Daniel, just on our end. Yeah, we do absolutely incentivize. I call it incentive-based revenue cycle, and so we're able to look really at the rep level and the group level, and if you're getting the right outcome in mind, you're going to be rewarded for it. So that's been a big satisfier within our organization on the services side.
Okay. Another good question here from Donna. How are working claims prioritized? Or is it timeliness versus claim value? What are the metrics you're using there?
Sure. So you have to have flexibility, Donna, on that. I'm not going to tell somebody you have to work it this way. You have to have flexibility. There may be certain insurance plans that have timely statutes, so you want to build out a configuration of work list that's tied to those aggressive statutes. You may even have appeal deadlines. I know a lot of our folks up in the Northeast only have, say, 10 to 30 days to respond when they get a denial or that payment is made to try to go after the underpayment. So you have to be able to prioritize different work lists in different ways. And that's the beauty of workflow automation. And again, a lot of those prioritizations come from analyzing the data and the outcome you're seeing to say, hey, it's time to build a work list. It's time to assign this to a person or a group of people, and let's start to measure and to improve off of the results here.
And Donna, okay. I can add that on a day-to-day basis, a AR specialist comes in, and the first thing that's going to pop up is the most expensive claim that is denied. So on a day-to-day basis, that's how we're set up. However, as we analyze the data throughout the week, my revenue cycle manager may make adjustments to those work lists to attack, as Matt said, timeliness, a lot of old claims that just haven't gotten to. So that flexibility is just invaluable, and then having a good leader analyzing that data and making those adjustments on the spot is valuable.
Mm-hmm. Maryanne, we have another question for you. What dashboard do you use?
So I use several dashboards, but for me, what I think works best for me is on a weekly basis, I get a workflow summary of what my AR team has done, and it tells me the denials by these categories that I've set up, so I know which part of my revenue cycle needs the most attention. And then on a monthly basis, I get those data analytics with those key performance indicators that allows me, again, to just look at the benchmarks and the key performance indicators, and if I'm interested in something more, I click on it, and every claim is there for me to review.
Okay. I want to thank everybody again for going over time with us. We've got one more question Matt's going to answer. Are there services out there that can help set up for an independent practice that doesn't have that expertise in-house?
Yeah, well, first of all, spending many years on the consulting side, I mean, there's certainly advisors out there that can help either set up a practice or start to look at the technology you have, need and the gaps between it. One thing I'll say in general, having been 20 years in and out of this, in this industry, is that you want to make sure you find vendor partners that develop based on the subject matter expertise. A lot of vendors like to develop in a vacuum based on big ideas, but they've never had boots on the ground in a practice. And so I think, and Maryanne, you may be able to attest a little bit to this, is to have a vendor partner that has advisory services that can really make sure that not only is the technology aligned correctly with people and process, but your people and process are set up correctly. And that really helps to ensure results, which obviously everybody wants.
Without a doubt, if you don't have a vendor partner that treats you like you are the only client that they have, you're robbing yourself of the real opportunity to use AI to your advantage.
That's fantastic. Thank you both, Matt and Maryanne. That was a great presentation. And to all the participants here, thank you so much for joining us. This was great content. We'd also like to thank Medievolve for their sponsorship. Medievolve empowers healthcare organizations to work smarter with data-driven solutions that provide unmatched transparency, automation, and accountability. You can learn more at medievolve.com. If you have additional questions, please contact onlineed@mgma.com. And if you haven't already, please click on the evaluation link. It's located in the chat area or on the slide. And as a reminder, we're offering ACMPE, ACHE, and CEU credit for this webinar. Also, you might be interested in our upcoming online seminar using Microsoft Excel's pivot table feature to analyze a practice's revenue cycle. It's a 3-hour, 2-day event. It's going to be held January 28th and 29th. And if you can't make those dates, it'll also be available on demand. For more information on all of our conferences and webinars, please see our events page. Thank you again for joining us. We hope to see you at a future